Next, from Springfield, we attend a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing in which David Glassman, the president of Eastern Illinois University, discusses how the budget impasse is affecting his university and other universities relying on higher education funding to keep their doors open. This runs about 20 minutes.
Oral testimony for all three, and for Katie Anselment for appearance only for this. Who's going to begin? Dr. Lord?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's David Glassman, president of Eastern Illinois University. To Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you today to testify on behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of Eastern Illinois University. We are proud to be the Illinois Public University with the lowest administrative costs per student and the second lowest tuition and fees. And we are situated in a community that was recently ranked the second safest and second most affordable college town in the entire nation. Our students exceed state and national benchmarks for nearly every academic indicator. I was honored to become EIU's 11th president on June 1st, 2015. It's a privilege to lead a university with such an outstanding record of academic excellence and passion for student success. Underlying EIU's tremendous success, I was faced with two significant challenges as soon as I took the helm: state appropriations and enrollment management. State appropriations fund approximately 23% of Eastern's operations annually, roughly $42 million of a $183 million budget. With those funds not yet having been approved, and in light of a multi-year enrollment decline, I found myself in the difficult position of making significant spending reductions almost immediately upon taking office. I also supported new enrollment management strategies as quickly as possible in an effort to reverse the enrollment trend. As the academic year began, I eliminated 198 positions and issued graduated level furlough days to all administrative and professional employees making over $50,000 annually. These efforts, coupled with some other operational efficiencies and cuts, achieved a savings of approximately $10 to $12 million. The reduction in expenses, in conjunction with a modest increase in freshman, graduate, and international enrollments, effectively right-sized the university's expenditures. We assured our MAP-eligible students that we would credit their accounts for their fall MAP awards while we awaited reimbursement from the state. This was a cost of $4 million. Our faculty forewent a raise they had already negotiated, freeing up approximately $500,000 to keep the adjunct faculty in the departments rather than being laid off. It was tough, but we pulled together for our students and our institution. And amidst all this, we were proud to be ranked Illinois' top regional public university by U.S. News and World Report for the 2015-2016 academic year, and fifth highest for public regional universities in the entire 12-state Midwest. As the winter break approached and there was still no state funds forthcoming, we again assured our MAP-eligible students that we would credit their accounts for their anticipated spring awards while we awaited reimbursement from the state at an additional cost of $3.6 million. To ensure our continued operations through the end of fiscal year 16 without disrupting instruction, EIU has had to expend all emergency cash reserves, stop all hiring, postpone all construction projects unrelated to safety and security, and severely restrict travel and all of our purchasing. Unfortunately, we find ourselves now well into the spring semester, and all these efforts still have not been enough to compensate for the complete lack of a state appropriation. Starting this month, we have mandated 18 unpaid furlough days, in addition to those previously issued, for all professional staff and administrators, effectively withholding an entire month's pay. And as of tomorrow, March 11th, 177 civil service employees will be laid off. Of these 177 employees, some are single parents, some are dealing with health issues, and in some cases, the layoffs will affect both husband and wife in the same household. I wish to be clear that these positions are being eliminated not because they are unessential. We need them. And not because we are right-sizing the university. That has already been accomplished. It is solely because we have not received a fiscal year 2016 state appropriation. The effects of the budgetary impasse are real for EIU, and they are devastatingly real to those 177 Illinois taxpayers and voters who have in many cases dedicated their entire careers to the students of Eastern. I could never have imagined when I came to EIU last June that 9 months into the fiscal year, we would still have no appropriation. We now stand at a critically threatening precipice, having been forced to operate without state funding for almost an entire year. We are not a university with large reserve funds, nor are we a university that has more than about $1 million of our entire endowment that is unrestricted and can be used at our discretion. The state is literally starving its universities to death. Potential campus closures and layoffs appear to be considered as wins or losses in a political chess game. We are encouraged to be vocal with our distress and at the same time warned to be quietly patient. Proposal after proposal is filed and lobbed across the aisle only to meet either quick defeat or eventual demise. Parents are literally driving Illinois students across the borders to pursue higher education in neighboring states. By the time Illinois public universities finally get their funds we need to support our students, we are not sure how many students will be left. I respectfully ask our lawmakers, what exactly is the end game here? I submit that EIU's interests, the General Assembly's interests, and interests of the governor have significant overlap with respect to higher education and its benefit to the citizenry in Illinois. EIU is supportive of efforts to reduce administrative costs. We are supportive of increasing the state's investment in procurement funding, and we are supportive of improving efficiencies with reducing red tape as it relates to procurement and regulatory issues. I implore our decision makers to come together and immediately enact a comprehensive and reasonable higher education appropriation for fiscal year 2016. This will provide for financial stability in our operations, allowing us to focus our complete attention on educating our students and reassuring Illinois high school seniors that Illinois public universities are strong, in fact, remain an excellent choice, as they will for generations to come. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to your questions.
Doctor, thank you very much. Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for coming today, President Glassman. I want to talk for a moment about, you mentioned your reserves. What is the current state of the reserves for Eastern Illinois University?
We started the year with approximately $27 million in reserves, and we have been trying to hold on to them as long as possible. Our reserves are down to about 12 million right now.
And we should start
with the other things that are taking place right now with the layoffs and everything else is what's going to get us through the fiscal year.
Okay. So you said start of the year, you're talking about the fiscal year, which begin, or the academic year?
Fiscal year.
Okay. So one thing that has been an issue of a lot of debate this year, of course, has been the MAP grants. Do you know how many students on the Eastern Illinois University campus have been promised MAP grants this year?
Approximately 2,300.
Okay. And do you know then, and right now, Eastern is fronting that money for those students, is that correct?
That's correct, about
Okay.
$7.6 million.
7.6 million, okay. Now, when well, I said it a different way. We've talked a lot about reforms that we can do, and certainly all options should be on the table right now. Procurement reform has been something that's been discussed quite a bit. Have you had a chance to look at some procurement reforms and how much you think that your university would save if procurement reforms were instituted?
For our university, it would be approximately $500,000.
$500,000? Okay. Now, the governor's proposal is a 20% cut to Eastern and the operating expenses for this year. Is that correct?
The governor's proposal was
17.
31.5 for 17,
For
which was
17.
20% from the fiscal year 15.
Right,
Yes.
okay. So you get 0 in 16 thus far.
That's
And
correct.
now you're looking at a 20% proposed cut for 17. Now, what does 20% come out to? How much less than in the 15?
It's about $400,000 per percent for EIU. So that'd be about $8 million.
Thank you. I'm not a university president, so I appreciate you doing the math for me. All right, so obviously not an offset, $8 million cut, but you could potentially get about $500,000 in gains through procurement reform. If this were to be instituted, even with procurement reforms, how would you make up the remaining $7.5 million of that cut?
Continuation of the efficiencies that we've had to do this year, as well as not be able to bring back these civil servants and other individuals that would be laid off, because that's a significant amount of money. Even though that they are essential to our operations, as I mentioned as I read my remarks, that we right-sized this university by taking that $10 and $12 million off the top when I first got there. 196 positions being eliminated.
Right.
Okay. These are positions that are critical to our operations. So if we were to take a 20% cut, we would have to be eliminating what I would say is beyond those, anything that would be soft cuts. These are very, very hard, critical individuals. So the only way that we can do that is obviously by increasing efficiencies, increasing revenue streams, and that's part of my enrollment integrative strategies that I'm putting in place to see an enrollment increase. For example, this spring we have the most international students that we have ever had on our campus. Our graduate programs are up from what they were last year, and as I already said, in the fall we had a 2% increase in freshmen.
Okay.
So we've got to be looking at our tuition enrollments.
Well, to make that up then, would you entertain an increase in tuition?
This fiscal year 2016, we had a 2.2% increase in tuition and fees. 2014, we had no increase whatsoever. And if we have any increase in fiscal year 2017, it would be nominal. So no, that's not the way that we would make up the money or the deficit that we would need. We have a strong commitment, as we always have, to be highly accessible, highly affordable for our students, and that will be continued.
You also indicated that Eastern has had an issue with declining enrollment in the last, 5 or 10 years. Is
That's
that
correct.
Would increased tuition have an escalating effect on the decreasing enrollment as well? Do you estimate that if your tuition were to be increased, that would even exacerbate that problem and make it
I think
less
much of
likely
our
to-
enrollment decrease that we saw was based on demographics of the state and changing number of high school students.
Okay.
Also, not perhaps having the most strategic program array, which is being altered right now, and also not diversifying the learning or the learners that were out there who would like to have an Eastern education, such as those online or adult students, and we're making changes in order to accommodate that. So we believe that we'll have a nice influx of enrollments. Our price point, we think, is good.
Okay, so when you say efficiencies, increased efficiencies, we're really talking about personnel, right?
We're talking
more
about
cuts,
personnel
furloughs.
doing more with less, yes.
Okay. Now, I appreciate your appearance before our committee in Charleston, I believe it was October, late October, And at that point, were doing all you could to kind of sound the alarm, even a few months into the impasse, and say, this is pretty serious, we need to address it. And at that point, I ask you, point blank, if you don't get any funds, how long can Eastern Illinois University operate? And at that point, I know you kind of gave us your best estimate at that point. Here we are 4 months later, 5 months later. If this continues, I mean, what is your estimate on that?
Well, as I said then, that we would make it through most of the spring without any challenges or making great sacrifices. And now we're in that point, and that's what has caused the layoffs, what has caused the furloughs, the contingencies that we need to put in place to continue throughout the rest of the semester, which we certainly will do, and graduate our students and so on. And then when fall starts to come, of course, there's tuition and fees that start to come in. So there's no day that one can say, when is that critical date? Okay. For us, we were going to do whatever is necessary in order to continue the great education that we provide our students and be accessible and affordable for these students to come. So we will continue to monitor it as time goes on and do what we have to do. Now, obviously, we feel that we're a partner of the state and we're doing it better than anybody else for our constituency of students, and we're waiting again for the state to do their part and assist us in the education. We're talking about a $40 million appropriation here approximately. And we talk large sums of money, and I don't want to sound that $40 million is not a lot. It's a lot of money. But that $40 million is the difference between having a world-class education for students with a success rate that Eastern has been able to do, and to impact and to create the leaders and entrepreneurs and educators and scientists that are going to take this state to greater heights. I cannot fathom how we have not been able to get our support from the state.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.